Let's talk about Jack Yanda again. So after Jack's unfair failure at the adventure exams, he heads back home. More specifically, he heads back to the place where he originally grew up at, near the edge of Intok Kingdom's capital. While he hasn't given up being an adventurer, he wants to take that time to readjust his mindset and visit his parents' grave. While that's happening, some other things play out in the background, namely revolving around the elven receptionist that we discussed in the prior video, Alexna. See, Alexna was actually elven royalty, the first princess of Table Kingdom, the Elven Kingdom. The main reason she had joined the WGC as working as an acting receptionist is so she can scout out potential candidates to be a husband. Though the Table Kingdom likes to have a pure bloodline, she was unsatisfied with the elven generation. Ergo, she decided to take it into her own hands and go outside of the kingdom to find a suitable partner to procreate with. And while it wasn't necessarily Jack that she chose, she ended up deciding that she wanted to help him. And this is mainly because she's a bleeding heart, and she wanted to rectify the mistake that was made. That being that Jack wasn't allowed to become an adventurer because of some douchebag proctor who decided to fail him and nearly kill him in the process. It also helped that this kid also has massive potential enough to actually be an elemental rookie. Because under normal circumstances, he would have passed with flying colors, apart from the first exam. So, Alexna taking matters into her own hands, she heads back to her kingdom with the news that she decided, and she has chosen the candidate for being a husband, Jack Yanda. Of course, Jack Yanda is too young, so she decides to send out a marriage proposal that in 5 years' time he would have to come to the kingdom and then earn the spot to get her hand in marriage. Upon returning home and declaring who she really was, she reached out to the WGC and claimed that if they do not allow Jack to pass because of the circumstances involved, she would retract the alliance to the WGC. The Elven Nation of Tybal and the WGC as a whole and the Council of Worlds have been allied for a while. And the Kingdom of Table is actually very reputable and has a lot of backing behind them. Though Elven nations tend to think that they're above all the other races, the Kingdom of Table is just a tad different in that they don't have a problem in interacting and befriending other kingdoms, though they'll still keep to themselves most of the time. So in order to keep Table as an ally and friendly relations with the royals, the WGC decides that Powder's actions weren't in line with the WGC's accord and decide to pass Jack Yanda. So not only does Jack Yanda get stated as their elemental rookie, but he also gets a marriage proposal that in 5 years' time he has to go to Table Kingdom to become, or at least fight for Alexna's hand in marriage. At the same time, this is the same part where the WGC cuts Jack's debt in half and gives the other half over to Palder, due to it being mainly his fault, but the WGC still wants to hold some control over Jack as an elemental rookie, so they keep the 8 million of that over on Jack. Additionally, in the same note, this is also around the same time, the day later, is when Kameko Kunzite is passed as an elemental rookie. All of this is happening without Jack knowing. Him still being hundreds of miles away at the place he grew up at, watching over his mother and father's funeral grave. Upon his return is when he finally learns that he has been stated as an elemental rookie, and that the original decision to not pass him was flipped on its head. What isn't known to him is the marriage proposal. Mako Kunzite and Haddock Shimura, Haddock being Mako's uncle, and by proxy, Jack's uncle, due to him taking him in and adopting him, didn't turn it up, but they hid the information from him. Haddock believing that Mako was still too young to be worried about anything related to marriage. From there, the two now elemental rookies begin preparing to finally get started on their trekking towards their dream of creating the strongest guild in existence. Of course, that being said, they didn't have any experience with guilds, how to make one or anything like that, so their first line of reasoning was to join a guild. At least Mako was. Jack, being the ever hothead and rush towards shit without thinking, decided to dive into a rift shortly after he got back. He decided to dive into the world known as Ophitis, or more commonly known as the world of snakes. So while Mako decides to do things the right way, Jack is ever rambunctious and decides he's already lived life long enough. Upon entering the world, he goes through a different city and eventually arrives upon his first dungeon. On Ophitis, all dungeons go down in spirals, kind of like the way a snake burrows. Though Jack knows a lot about dungeons, having studied as well as trained for the last 4 years, he knew almost nothing about Ophitis and decided to take a chance anyway. To cut an adventure short, he almost ends up dying on his first adventure. However, he is saved by the Flaming Sparrows Guild, namely by a man named Dante Yanda. For reference, Yanda is a very common last name, like having the last name of Smith, or like having a name of Wilson or something like that. I'll go over Dante's character in another video, as well as the entirety of the Flaming Sparrows, but for now, just know that Dante in this instance was very callous and rude. This was mainly because his younger brother had only passed away a year ago due to some incidents in the dungeon. However, that being said, he still opted to save Jack because he's still genuinely a good guy. So Jack, now being the ever-impressioned kid that he is, decides that this group is amazing and he wants to join it. Dante himself doesn't want to. All the other guild members think that it would be good for Dante to have such a rambunctious young member amongst the crew, and Eugenio, the vice captain, agrees to let him join. Upon clearing the dungeon and returning back to the world of Ornera, the main world, Jack introduces Dante's guild to Mako, or rather Mako walks up and introduces himself. Shortly thereafter, like within a few days, Jack is officially registered as a Flaming Sparrows member. From then on, Jack exclusively just goes everywhere with the Flaming Sparrows, mainly Dante Yanda. Little by little, Dante begins to thaw out as he interacts more and more with Jack. Though Dante didn't see Jack as a replacement for his brother, he did see him as a younger brother type figure, and took it upon himself to teach Jack how to fight with the sword. Up until that point, Jack had only been training with hand-to-hand martial arts. But even though Jack really wanted to fight with the sword. And Jack quickly learned that he was pretty dog shit at the sword, and he was much better with hand-to-hand combat, but he did not give up. He really wanted to learn the sword, so he continued. Over the course of the next few months, Jack trained relentlessly and went on dozens of missions in accordance with the Flaming Sparrows. He built bonds, friendships, memories that would last a lifetime for him. And then came the fateful day of the Bird Massacre. A friend of Dante's requested the Flaming Sparrows to go out and do a mission for him. He wanted them to go to the forsaken world of Greldoa, a volcanic planet that spewed lava every single second. It was dangerous, and almost no one could have caught dead in it, except for the top-rated Rift Hunters who didn't really give a shit. However, since it was from a friend, Dante agreed and decided that it would be good training for him in his guild. I'll go over the next coming events in the next part. If you want to read NameLess, go to patreon.com/ShadowDrev. First 30 chapters are free, and I'll see y'all in the next part. Y'all take it easy.